So you stumbled upon our podcast. Hope you got your lighter. Sup, I'm Lada. Welcome to Functional Potheads. And today is a fun day because I'm pretty high, but pretty mellow. And there's mostly good news. I feel like after episode 2, I had like a ton of energy. And I'm going to say it was in part due to the nap I had just before recording. But today I definitely have a lot less energy. And I am pretty baked. So what I'm smoking on right now is some Harmony Farms Blackberry Kush. It is pretty tasty. I liked how it looked. I'm going to show the jar in a moment. But I'm in the middle of packing a bowl that requires quite a bit of attention. Dylan here said he hadn't, gotten a chance to hit a distillate out of the bowl. So I'm packing an extra special bowl for today. And I don't know where this is going to lead with the rest of the show. Hold on to your britches. But today in Weed Affirmations, I came up with, I will use cannabis to meet people where they are. So you have all these expectations sometimes of others when you come in contact with them, or how they should be or how they act. Or even in the cannabis sphere, you think that everyone uses cannabis the same way that you do. And that is like so not true. For me, cannabis connects to a lot of who I am and my makeup, right? And so that's part spiritual, not religious. So it hits all these things, political activism, and that is not it for everyone. Some people just fucking get high and they don't have the capacity to get to that depth with things. So like you really just have to accept the perspective of the individual you're dealing with. And I love that cannabis is like, oh yeah, all right, cool, yeah, you're different. Like whenever I'm high and I'm in that situation, I'm like, all right, yeah, whatever. So I'm okay. I'm comfortable with you being absolutely opposite of me. That doesn't mean we have to have beef. So thank you. Yeah, that is a dope affirmation. But the Blackberry Kush by Harmony, I'm going to pass this around so you can smell it. This is a jar. Not too bad. Pretty. The nugs themselves, I'm going to show. Oh, it's like nice dense nugs. I love it when they, although I've heard that's not necessarily how weed grows and PRCs, like things are added to get them to be this dense. Not to say that's what Harmony is known for, because I'm pretty sure they're pretty clean as a company. I was looking for the pesticide free. You can always find out by looking at the back of the labels. Most companies, if they are pesticide free, want you to know it. So please read your labels as a consumer. You want to smell this, man? You want to get in on this? I did smoke some DNA green crack earlier. What else did I do? I did a dab. I ate an edible. I smoked a couple of other joints. So that's why I'm like just chilling right now and trying to be the functional pothead that you need me to be today, okay? So cannabis news. A couple of great things. A Washington home grow bill is moving forward, and it was like serendipitous, I would say. With the last episode we were talking about that and I wanted to know more, and then all of a sudden life was like, here's some more information on it. Here's what's happening. So House Bill 1019 passed out of legislative committee last month with a bipartisan support and is scheduled for a hearing tomorrow with the House Appropriations Committee. So hopefully we can see some sort of legislation out there allowing recreational users to grow cannabis, because it is allowed for medicinal licensees, but you do have to be registered, have to be compliant. So there's a lot of ground rules on that. And then you can have a certain number of patients that you serve to. So yay, Washington. This is the first step. But when I was reading the article by the Seattle Times, I thought it was hilarious because this company, it just keeps popping up all over. And this is why you need to pay attention to news in like consecutive manners. Okay? Yeah, we are heading in the right direction step by step in the comment section. But you have to pay attention. So this Scott's Grow Company, I was researching cannabis stocks and I saw that they are publicly traded and they're on there. So there's different types of stock groups, and I am posting a blog on this for everyone to get into it if you're interested in cannabis stocks. The criteria they all divide into. Some are producer processor companies. Some of them are like from the pharmaceutical side of things, and some of them are ancillary, like this fertilizer company, but their fertilizer is organic certified and more commonly used in cannabis growing farms. So you see how they all participate within the industry just very differently. So they popped up and I saw them. They were publicly traded. And I'm like, okay, that's cool. And then I found out through this article that the study that I spoke about last week by the UW Impact Committee was funded by that same Scott's Growing Corporation. So that's how we got all the background and information. And coincidentally, that information is also helping bolster this House bill policy moving forward. And I'm like, okay, like, cool. You know what I mean? You're doing something literally to help, like good lobbying. And then the article keeps going. And I was like, damn, man, what is happening? So it's curious why Scotts Grow is a Ohio-based company, that fertilizer company. But last year, or 2019, they purchased a Vancouver, Washington-based agriculture supply company for like a buku amount of dollars, like $450 million. So basically a company you would go to get all the supplies you need so that you could grow cannabis, they purchased in Washington. And then later on funded research that supported the idea of home grow being successful in Washington. Still not bad. I'm not knocking them. I'm not saying it. But it's very coincidental that that research is then backing a bill that is moving through about home grow. Either way, I benefit as a consumer. I'm okay with this. I'm not mad. But I want you to see how corporate money walks and talks and how it touches everything. Follow the money, man. I think that study cost them $30K just to see what the economic impact. That's what the whole study focused on by UW. So they paid $30K. And essentially that's hedging a bet to see how much they are going to get in the end. And you know what? I'm not going to tell you that. You got to read the blog about cannabis and stocks. You got to know whether I am for or against investing in them as a company. Because I'm just saying. Moving on, also positive news. Virginia. This is where you need the air horns. Like, you know, like for real. Like, big up Virginia. It's about time. Their Senate and their House was like, we need to figure cannabis out. So they both produced bills that like won by a majority in favor of their citizens legalizing cannabis. But the way it unrolled is that it's not going to start till 2024, giving them time to build up a regulatory process, build up sort of an infrastructure to support this burgeoning industry. And I think that is an excellent idea. The first article I read, I don't think I enjoyed as much because I read it, it gave me the facts. It was just cut and dry. This is what it's going to do. And it's doing a lot, either one of these bills. It would expunge the death penalty. It would expunge misdemeanor cannabis charges. It would still be illegal under the age of 21 to possess cannabis, illegal to drive on it and consume in public, you know, just a general, hey, we don't want this, and limits on your advertising capabilities of cannabis because we don't want minors to get it. There's one thing they haven't quite figured out. Oh, they also already included home grow, so you could get 2 mature plants, 2 immature plants. So this was a pretty well thought out bill, an all-encompassing for a loose framework for a great regulatory process. That first article didn't look at it from the scope of social equity. And I think it would be unfair of me to not point out the obvious that reducing what you would criminalize, which they haven't settled on fully, like if they would lower the amount that you could possess, like under an ounce is fine and we're not going to mess with you. They're still forking those details out. But they just was no plans of reparations or including giving back to that underserved community. No discussion of that with that bill being dropped. And you're saying, well, if I'm not policing for cannabis, if I'm not prosecuting for cannabis, then essentially people of color will benefit because you're the ones that are most policed for this in that state. And that was from 2010 to 2019. The arrest rate for possession of marijuana was 3.5 times higher for Black individuals than white individuals. And then the conviction rate off of that is still 3.9 times higher than that. So truthfully, you fix that little issue, then we've done some good. But you could be direct because Virginia, south of the Mason-Dixon line, Virginia, y'all got some shit to own up for. Okay? Y'all was all up in the slave trade. You was with it. And you still perpetuate it now. And as such, I just think that you could have done more with this. And if you give yourself till 2024, revise the hell out of this. Fight for it, citizens. You do deserve it. You have been doing great things to rectify stuff thus far. So I think last year I said Illinois was the state that was doing it right. I think another great example is now Virginia. And if you want an example of what not to do, look up what New Jersey is doing, because that is a hot ass mess. And I just don't have the energy to discuss trash today. Notice, it's all positive news with a dose of realism, because that's who I am. Finally, in cannabis news, I think the most positive thing that can come out of cannabis news is a new study about cannabis dropping, because that will just continue to fortify what the anecdotal claims are of cannabis being medicinal and helpful. People said they do doubt certain things, and I get it. They would believe it if it was scientifically studied. So the most recent study is about how cannabis can lower blood pressure in the elderly, so individuals over 60. And I think that dropped like in the last week or so. And we all know how high hypertension is on the, list of medical ailments that take people's lives, especially in the community of color. So I just couldn't have been happier to see this come out. And there's a couple things about this study. When a new study drops, I would like to see that study copied. That's the one thing about the science community. I hate when they're secretive. Like, you come up with a concept, you let them know, and then you pass it around so other people can research it. And it needs to be a collective. It needs to be a group. That's the only way the scientific process really truly functions. So fact checks it. So the idea is that those that consumed it noticed a significant decrease in their systolic and diastolic levels, more so at night. And as soon as I saw more so when at night, but I'm like, well, they're not out in the world. You know what I mean? They might be at home. They're sleeping most of that time. One would hope that as you relax, your blood pressure would go down as well. Now, they do have diagnosed hypertension. So most of the time, or all of the time, they are high. But I just think you have to admit that if you reduce some of the stressors physically on you, that it would be lower. Thank you, Grey's Anatomy, for teaching me about systolic and the other one, diastolic. I'm going to thank St. Pete College for my veterinary technician degree and the years at that hospital where I spent running anesthesia with animals and playing with their systolic and diastolic pressure. I'm a stupid artist. Yeah, it's hilarious. This is more challenging for me than that. I know more about science than I do about creativity, and this is just... Well, actually, cannabis is a mix of both right now. It's a culture, and it's a actual thing. I love it. We're going to take a quick break. Cannabis Corner is coming up next.
The Bakersmen Collective presents...
All right, welcome into another episode of Cannabis Corner with Mr. Bean here.
Yo.
And today we're chatting about THC. Well, all forms of THC. So THCA, THC, and Delta 8.
Yes. That is exactly what we'll be speaking about. So I gave these guys their own little nicknames. THCA is a non-intoxicating cannabinoid found in raw and live cannabis.
Okay.
As the plant's dry, THCA is converted to THC, which everybody knows. Mm-hmm. Heat expedites the process, also known as decarboxylation of the acid bond being removed and being transferred into THC, which everyone takes and loves and holds very dearly. But
they really care about that number.
Yeah, they love that number.
What's the percentage?
What a lot of people need to understand, THCA also plays a big role in what you're consuming and what your end result is going to be when consuming cannabis. The nickname that I gave this was the next step because it's like a step down from CBG. So the same process, bonds are being removed and things are being moved around. So it goes from CBG down to THCA. And through that same process, you're getting from THCA to THC. THCA medically is known to relieve inflammation, pain. It's ideal cannabinoid for the treating of arthritis because of its role that it plays with the nerve and the central nervous system.
Do they make topicals high in THCA? That'd be interesting.
The acid bond in THCA is actually really good for topicals. So if you were to get a cut or a scrape, it is a good novel use. We had talked about THCVA that they use it. Same idea. Yeah. For a topical and skin treatments. Okay. It's really, really good for the skin.
All right. So people with like rheumatoid arthritis and where like it's like, swollen knuckles and whatnot, that would be a solution for them.
The neuroprotectant aspect of that is also good for people with Alzheimer's and Parkinson's.
Interesting. But I haven't seen anything like that come on the market in the I-502.
No, I can't really think of any companies that do THCA extracts because what's going to happen, like a lot of time when you smoke it, it's going to become THC. But I haven't seen any like extracts in like the form of edibles because that'd probably be the best way to receive just the THCA. I want to say Series does do a topical. The Dragon Bomb, I believe, is THCA.
You're right, because they have 3 different tiers. They've got the 500 milligram CBD solve. Then they have one that's like 175, 175.
Yep.
I think one of them is THCA or something like that. Anyway, we're getting off topic. Continue on.
So next in the chain, by way of decarboxylation, we come to THC. Now, THC I dubbed the rock star because everybody that knows the plant, knows the leaf, automatically is synonymous. So weed, THC is what we highly revere and everybody loves, and it's used recreationally and medically alike. It's a derivative of THCA, like I've said. The main psychoactive effect that you get is going to be from THC. Notable psychoactive effect.
We all love it.
But there are certain aspects of THC that are beneficial, that are used medically. So it is a mild muscle relaxant. So very, very beneficial for people with muscle pains, things of that nature. And one thing that they did a study on, like this is like one of the earliest studies, and it's always mentioned in like comedies and everything like that when people ask why are you smoking? I have glaucoma. But it's really, really, really good for glaucoma because when you have glaucoma, the ocular muscles put pressure like on your eyes. So, and what happens when you smoke, everybody knows your eyes get lower. That's because your ocular muscles are starting to relax. So it's one of the best treatments for glaucoma and other ailments that are similar.
Our grandparents been right all along. Everybody was trying to act like they was lying. They know what they was
lying. So as we move away from THC and THC starts to further degrade, it takes...
Wait, I have a question before we run away from THC. Yeah. Like there's no products sold in a recreational market like I-502 without a little bit of THC in it. So you can get some CBD heavy gummies or everything like that, but there's going to be at least 1 milligram of THC in there. And
the legal amount, I believe in the I-502 is 0.8 for the legal market, and for the CBD market is 0.06 to be considered hemp.
Okay, that makes sense. But also the reason why we don't recommend products without a little bit of THC in it is that it helps interact with CBD, like how the molecules play a role to get the desired effects you want out of other cannabinoids.
So your CB1 receptors, which are going to be mostly in the brain, nervous system, the way that THC reacts, it bonds to those receptors fairly easy because the slot that THC fits into is a perfect fit. So it helps with absorption for other cannabinoids like CBD, which doesn't like readily fit into that slot, they could latch on to the THC molecule and kind of like help with absorption of all those molecules together.
Yeah, so THC really is a rock star. Like, I be helping everybody out. You feel me?
Yeah.
Slide on over to the next other favorite THC of mine.
As we slide down, we move into a lesser known cannabinoid. THC further degrades and takes one of two pathways. One of those pathways, Delta 8, and another one, CBN. We're going to be talking about Delta 8. Yeah. So Delta 8 is not only available just as a byproduct of THC, but it's also found in hemp flower and some strands in a pretty decent abundance. So it is basically a chemical chain. Delta 8 and Delta 9. So Delta 9 is THC. Delta 8 refers to a carbon chain. So the carbon chain is one slot away from where the Delta 9 is. So it has no problem basically bonding with the same receptors that THC bonds to, but they're way more mild high. And something that I learned in my reading is if you are smoking Delta 8, you may not be safe from a piss test because some piss tests only test for THC. So you could be taking a THCA supplement for nausea or whatever it may be. And because they are only testing for THC and not like the byproducts of THC itself, you can basically pop on a drug test, and that's pretty dangerous for people that are smoking hemp flower on the legal market.
Places in Tennessee, places in Arizona are pushing Delta 8 now just as heavy as they're pushing CBD because of what they can get out there on the market. So like, you guys need to listen up. And on top of that, we've already mentioned like drug tests are mainly set to catch marijuana smokers, like not for any other hard drugs that would be in their system for a long period of time. So just beware.
It's just another snare that you have to be very aware of, because if they're just testing for THC as a broad spectrum like of cannabinoids and not like focusing on just actual THC itself, what happens is you can basically be given a positive test for smoking Delta 8. So medical uses of Delta 8. Appetite stimulant.
Yep. Helps with nausea too.
It also has the neuroprotective properties that are lent from its predecessor. And they've done a lot of studies on Delta 8 in stimulating creativity.
Oh.
And what I've dubbed it is boneless THC, because anybody that's taken a decent amount of Delta 8 knows what I'm talking about. It's a very notable high, but not something that's overpowering. A recent study has also shown that given Delta 8 to certain patients with certain cancers can help with nausea by 100-fold almost, like better than any medicine that they could give them. And that's taken orally. So Delta 8 itself is definitely a force to be reckoned with. And there are way more studies coming out, and people are really driving it right now because unfortunately, because it has a notable psychoactive effect. But what's going to happen eventually and essentially is we're going to get a fountain of knowledge about this cannabinoid that we previously did not have. So
two products that I would mention that if you're in Washington that are high in Delta 8 or that have Delta 8 are the Smokies. And they're probably not going to be on the market for much longer because I think Washington is debating whether or not like it's too much THC just because it's another THC. So the limit in Washington is 10 milligrams per piece. They have like 250 milligrams of Delta 8 and 10 milligrams of CBD in one option, which means you get 25 milligrams a piece of Delta 8, 1 milligram of CBD per piece. And they make a good gummy. Another product they dropped it's crazy. It was 100 milligrams of THC, 100 milligrams of Delta 8, 10 milligrams of CBD. I have some right now. These edibles, like, man, they'll have you like almost sleepwalking, dude.
What?
Yeah, they're so dope. And then Paris, a pesticide-free leaf company, dropped vape pen cartridges.
I just smoked some of their flower. I just smoked some of their headband and lemon OG crossed, the Paris OG.
The Paris OG, that's nice.
Two other products to look out for if you're on the Washington market. Mobius does a 25 milligram drink and House of Cultivar has syringes of Delta 8 extract. And I will tell you this much, after eating a gram of one of those, I've never felt better in my life. And there's something about the absorption of THC, Delta 9, with the absorption of Delta 8. There's something there because I ate a very small amount of RSO after, like, not long after eating the Delta 8, and I felt like I was on another planet.
Yes. I mean, I had somebody walk by me and they go, "Wake up," because I was kind of just
yeah. Another thing that I forgot to mention about THC.
Please share.
One more thing. There are actually places that are treating certain addictions with very, very high levels of THC to replace basically people's opiates, people's benzo addictions. Yeah. They are replacing those things, basically weaning people off with high amounts of THC through concentrates.
Wow.
And the success rate doesn't seem like it's really high because it's like, I believe 35%. But when you look at that success rate against the success rate of something like methadone, which is like fairly low, it's a step in the right direction. Yeah. So I wanted to make sure I mentioned that because I thought that shit was fire.
Yeah. No, I mean, like, that goes back to like why Amsterdam was a popping spot for weed in the first place. Like, it originated as a safe place in trade, you know, where you could consume things you were addicted to, you know what I mean? And in an effort to wean them off. And I think I heard Philly is going that route as well with their cannabis market. If you've ever been to Philly, you know the homeless population.
Crazy.
Yeah, they're really addicted out there. And I hope Washington can wake up and see that this could be an option. You know what I mean? Like, our homeless population, our addicted population is way too high. And we have cannabis here. We have the tools, the sources. We can make a difference.
Yeah, we have so many knowledgeable professors and like respected people in this trade that they can work with. It could be possibly like life-changing and crazy beneficial for not only the state, but the nation, the world.
Yep. Well, thank you for ending it on that note. This has been another Cannabis Corner.
And now that you've tuned into Cannabis Corner, let's move on to Light Up and Listen. It's something I always do and have been doing for the last like 5 hours today. And it's been great. My friend actually took over the remote and put on a bunch of tunes that I haven't heard. So yay. But this week on Light Up and Listen, Van Jess just dropped a new album called Homegrown. And I don't know, I'm honestly wondering if Siri reads my mind sometimes. This is off topic, but I have to explain. So my Siri was on shuffle and it played like 2 Van Jess songs that I haven't had their album on in a while. So started jamming and I read more into them. They're a South African sister duo, I believe South African, if not African. And I was like, dang, I haven't listened to them in a while. Next thing I know, they drop a new album. I'm like, how's that? What's happening? I don't think this is coincidental. That was you were plotting, you were planning. Like, once you watch that social media documentary or whatever, the social dilemma or whatever, you're like, they are trying to program me to listen to whoever they decide is good. But these women are talented, so I'm not going to knock them. I think you should check out their music. It's amazing. As well as we discussed him slightly last week, Coda the Friend, and thank you for the audience member that suggested I go listen to Lyrics to Go Volume 2 because I did not know that dropped either, and I thoroughly enjoyed his first volume of that, and I was bumping it earlier today. His voice kind of hugs you. I think he has the most appropriate name, Coda the Friend, because he speaks to you. It's like spoken word, and he's talking to you as if he's your friend. And you know you've never met this man ever, right? But the way he writes his bars and puts it together, you feel like he is like, oh, that's the homie. So I enjoy his rap name, man. And I wish him nothing but a bunch of success. In honorable mentions, Lady London. I got to give her props. I believe she's dropping a project soon, and I don't know if it's going to be an album or EP, but I'm ready because the wordplay, the way she just floats on the beat and just talks to you. I'm like, ugh. You know, I just want to get rich to give you money. Just you could talk it out of me. But I follow her on social media, so apparently she likes men. And moving on, Amalu has an EP named Amahu. And I thought that was fucking like just genius. Just genius, you know what I mean? But their voice was, I was shuffling on YouTube and YouTube randomly played a video and I like was doing stuff. And then, you know, when you hear someone's voice that you like, you look up like, what is that? And you just fall right into it. And it was like a 13-minute long video, just so visually breathtaking, I guess, and weird. Just like weird for 13 minutes on camera. And then I look up the album and of course it's called Amahu. But I suggest everyone go and listen to it because just amazing. I love music. I don't know where I would be without it. Speaking of that, I just saw a meme and it's from Lilo and Stitch the movie. And it's where like she's playing the Elvis song. And it's, I didn't even realize that scene happened, but I think the caption was like, I couldn't relate more to it, where like her older sister's trying to get her out and she's just leave me here to die, and turns up the song and is jamming to Elvis. And I'm like, besides it being Elvis, yeah, that's just leave me alone to just jam out to music, because the rest of that is sometimes full of bullshit. And that went from being super positive in cannabis news to sort of awkward and weird in Light Up and Listen. But music takes you through your emotions. And these were the emotions I was listening to this week. So you don't stay there. You just let them float away with each note and off into the sky. Dang. We got through the show so quick. So I guess it's dope that you took the time to have a J with us. Until the next session, remember, we're just a few functional potheads out here just trying to bring the light and truth about cannabis.